Tell me about Bolt Farm Treehouse.
Someone actually just recently called us a 10-year overnight success. And I'm like, that's pretty true because it started 10 years ago, but the first six were pretty slow going for us. But, the word is getting out. A lot of people are discovering Bolt Farm, and I just feel like a proud parent. It's incredible to see something that was created, just with me and Seth, inspired by love, really take on a life of its own. Seth built the treehouse, the very first treehouse by hand with his dad for our wedding. It was like 2013 when he was watching Airbnb really gain traction. Instagram was this new platform that everybody was talking about. And Treehouse Masters was one of the most popular shows on TV at the time. And he always wanted a treehouse growing up, but he grew up very poor and that just wasn't in the cards for him. He never got his childhood treehouse. And he also, for the last 20 plus years, has been playing music with his band Need to Breathe, traveling the world, spending most of their time in cities. And he would just feel his spirit lift every time he'd get back into nature. He's like, this is my happy place. This is where I need to be. And so it took him 2 years to convince his dad to build a treehouse. He's like, listen, I need this. I think other people will need it too. I can market it on this new platform called Instagram. I can sell it on this platform called Airbnb, and I think people will come. And it's a very small rural town in South Carolina. His parents thought it was crazy. He's like, no one's going to spend money to come here and stay in a treehouse. But he's like, no, I'm really going to bet on these platforms. I think there's something there. And then we met in the process soon after they started. And he says, inspired by love, he wanted to make it a romantic, luxurious, dreamy treehouse worthy of our wedding day. Because a treehouse could be anything. A lot of times even when I'm describing what we do, people hear treehouse and they're thinking maybe it's kind of an adventure fort or something. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. These are like treehouses with private hot tubs, heated marble floors, cliffside view of 3 states, and they see a photo and then their jaw drops. So he made it that level for our wedding day. It was absolutely magical. And truly, we were just going to enjoy it for us and rent it out here and there and see what we could do. Like, I was working in news. He had his successful band. Like, we did not say, oh, we're going to start this, treehouse company, but it kind of just organically happened, which I think is really beautiful. We got to experience the power of an inspiring environment that helps you disconnect from the busyness of life, quiet the noise, and be really present. There's all these little things that are like timeless treasures inside. There's a record player, there's French press coffee with the grinder, there's a therapeutic coloring book, just, things that you don't typically do in your everyday life. And we did all those things. Meanwhile, we're dreaming and journaling and praying about our life and what we want it to look like. And everything was pointing to this, to creating more spaces like this for other people, and specifically couples. We really have a heart for couples, want to help them reconnect. If you're running a business or a high performer, you have kids, like, it's so easy to get disconnected. I talk to couples all the time who are like, this is our first stay, just the two of us, in years. Like last week, there was a couple, 13 years since they had been away together, and they came to our place. And so, that's really what started it all. And I tell people we're not in the business of tree houses or accommodations or domes or glamping. Like, that's not it. That's not what we do. That's just the vehicle that enables us to do what we do. We're in the business of transformational experiences and helping couples reconnect. And that's the difference. And that fuels everything we do. And I think our guests really feel the love. They talk about that. And so that means so much. And it has been quite a journey over the last 10 years since we listed that very first treehouse, on Airbnb. Flash forward to today, we're not on Airbnb at all. We do 100% direct bookings. We now have a 55-acre mountaintop retreat in Tennessee with 23 luxury villas, a spa, a wellness haven, and we're continuing to grow. We're building 12 more this year. But again, it wasn't just like easy and one success after another. Actually, our second development totally failed. So the first one was very successful. It gave us confidence to do more. And so we sold our house, bought land, like put everything, scraped all the money we had together to buy 35 acres near Charleston. And what we didn't know is that behind the scenes, there were talks about adopting regulations that were anti-Airbnb. So they didn't have any at the time, but they adopted them soon after we opened. And I mean, it's easy to just say quickly here, but like, I can't even put words to how challenging that period was. It was years of fighting for our business, ultimately lost and had to start over.
Mm. This is incredible, isn't it? Because so many people have this same problem. I've had so many conversations over the years, and it could be something along the lines of these new restrictions that are coming in, or it could be zoning or planning or something in the local community. People suddenly just don't like the idea of this new business and these challenges that come along. So what on earth kept you going during that period? It must have been so hard.
It was the darkest time for both of us. And I think a lot of people would have quit, and that probably would have been easier, but we just have had and still have to this day such deep belief in what we're doing, that this is a good thing for people, that this is what we're supposed to be doing. And on top of that belief, I would also add mindset. Our mindset really got us through. And, you know, if you are entering the hospitality business solely to make money, don't do that. Like, there are easier ways to make money. Do a digital product, you know, do it. It's like, this can be a very profitable business. It is for us, but it's a lot of work and there's a lot of challenges and struggles, you know. Mentors can help you avoid some of those struggles and avoid those pitfalls, but you know, we figured it out. We figured it all out on our own. And if we were just in it for the money, we would have quit. But that's not the case, you know. We're looking for the ROI, the return on impact. Like, we want to impact others. We want to restore relationships. And so that's what keeps us going. It's, you know, reading the guest book or talking to a guest who said, this saved my marriage, or I rediscovered my best friend again. Like, we keep going for them. And I think when you have, yes, the desire for a healthy business, the profits, whatnot, maybe it's brand reputation, then it's, you know, purpose, impact, and belief. And for us, it was, you know, the layering of all of those things that kept us going, because we literally did have to stop and start over. And I want to tell you kind of a crazy story that a lot of people don't know that this happened. But so, you know, with Charleston, we had already created a pretty popular brand. There's a lot of demand. Our calendars were full, and all this is going on. And the local regulations say, you know, you have to shut down your business. You can't host anybody. And I'm like, Seth, what are we going to do? We've got people coming for their honeymoons, for birthday. They've booked flights. Like, they've been counting on this. We can't ruin these people's special milestones. Like, I'm not going to do that to them. And so we had a lot of difficult conversations about this, because obviously it costs a lot of money to operate a luxury resort. We refunded their money because we had to, and we hosted them anyways for months. Yeah. And I remember, like, that week of getting to make these calls, it was so emotional, but it was also really fun to get to call these people and tell them and, like, surprise them and say, hey, here's the situation, but, like, we want to host you anyways. And some people were like, is this for real? Is this really, Tori? Is this happening? I'm like, yes, like, come, we're here. And what's incredible is that our guests, they did come, and some of them would, like, leave us, you know, some cash, you know, to help cover cost and whatnot. And even those who didn't, like, they have now come back and visited our new place in Tennessee, you know, and, like, we got to lead with generosity, then build trust that now has carried those relationships through a failed development into where we are today.
Trust has been eroded so much since that time in general in the hospitality industry because of COVID and all the terrible things that have happened since then. But you had an opportunity to build that trust at the very beginning and really forge relationships with your future customers, which no doubt your customer return rate is probably very good. So, congratulations. I think what you've really hit on there as well is not just the fact that if you want to get into hospitality, do it with your eyes open, understand it's not just all about money. It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of reward, but it isn't necessarily financial. But there are a lot of headaches along the way. But most of all, the fact that you are very in touch with your why and why you're doing this. You clearly said it a number of times. You're helping people reconnect. And if people aren't really engaged and connected to their why, they will start to run out of steam. They will start to run out of motivation, and they won't be able to do the things that you've been able to do, because the momentum will just start dying out. And I think that's incredible. And so how would you suggest, if someone is thinking about doing something similar to your situation, or smaller or larger, how would you suggest they do get in touch with their why? So why are they doing what they're doing and their purpose? Is there anything you can suggest there?
Yeah, I think it's, spending time with yourself and really getting clear on it. Like, what is a problem that you can dedicate your life, or maybe even just the next 10 years, to solving? What lights you up? We all have something, that thing that gets you up in the morning. Like, what problem are you trying to solve for others? How can you make a difference? And just spend some time in that. Journal, write what comes to mind. Like, don't force it. Don't try to come up with the right answer, air quotes. Don't take someone else's why, because that's not going to get you through your hard time. It has to be yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is across the board, actually. Don't rely on what other people are doing and the purpose that other people are following. Definitely find your own. And you also mentioned that you did a lot of journaling at the beginning and kind of heart searching. Is that something that you promote a lot?
I do. I think it helps you, quiet your mind, slow down, and really be present. And I would love to say that I journal every single day. It's not true. It doesn't happen. But, I would say I'm batting 80% of the time. But even if it's just a few minutes every day that I do journal, I'm writing down 5 things I'm grateful for and 10 dreams. What do I care about? What am I chasing? And for us, rewinding to our honeymoon in the treehouse, we're newlyweds, no kids yet, working totally different careers. And what we were journaling and writing about was just like, what do we want our lives to look like when we hopefully have kids, and now we have a toddler? And what kind of environment do we want to raise them in? Seth grew up on a farm in South Carolina with a dad who had a construction business, and he grew up on the job site. He learned hard work. He learned how to serve people. And we're like, okay, we want that. We want that. We want to model hard work for our kids. We want them to grow up in nature, all these different things. And we're like, wow, like the treehouse is this idea, this business, this concept checks so many boxes for our life, And so, everyone's different. I'm not saying that my approach is the only way, but I know a ton of businesses ran by an owner who lives in a different state or has another 9 to 5. And this is a side thing. And I just think that's really hard to do. Like, unless this is truly a side hustle for you and it's not your number one priority or passion, I think it breaks down, So for us, we're like, we want to be all in. This has to make sense for our lives because we're going to spend our lives doing this. Mm-hmm. And so I say this, kind of playfully, but part of the reason we created a spa was because we wanted to enjoy the best spa. And there's no spas near us. So like, let's just build one and we can enjoy it for us. And we do. We get a monthly hydrofacial. We're doing the things, a lot of what we personally would enjoy for our lives is what we now give to our guests. And I think that's something that sets us apart here. Like, I can't tell you how many guests mentioned this in the reviews. The rooms, they thought of every little detail. Everything was just right. Oh, the VIP experience, it was perfect. The pizza kit, the s'mores. It's like, oh, how did you guys come up with this? Like, it's no genius strategizing session. Like, we just thought, what do we like to do when we go on vacation? Well, we want to, we're going to make food. We're going to drink wine. We're going to do this, have conversation cards. Let's package that up for our guests. And then for the rooms too, like part of our process is before we open up a villa to the public, we stay in it. And then our team, bless them, they get the blue tape list of all the things that we've got to tweak before we can welcome our first guest because, well, this outlet placement doesn't make sense. And this was hard to reach and not easy to find. And we want to just make it really intuitive because when you can eliminate the friction, you can keep people out of logic land and they can stay in vacation mode. And you don't want them to have to turn their brain on, but they're going to turn their brain on if they can't find something or it's difficult to figure out or whatever. So we obsess over every little detail, even to the point of like and I'm looking around because I'm in a treehouse right now. Every light switch that you see is on a dimmer. Because you just, if you have to go to the restroom in the middle of the night, you don't want to be like blinded. Like you just want like a little light. Or Seth is a big vibe guy, So all these little things and like on their own, they might sound silly. Oh, put dimmers on your light switches. Oh, do this. Have, incense in the room. But all these little things, I think, add up to an unforgettable experience.
Absolutely. And I think staying in your own accommodation, so important. I've heard stories of people who have done this same thing in every single unit that they've created. And then they found something like the wind was going and it was knocking a gate against the outside of the cabin. And that was creating this very kind of unnerving knocking noise. And just having those little things that you know that you can sort out and tweak means that your customers aren't ending up with those things that maybe leads to a bad review or not booking again. So I love that you do that. And it also means you're tweaking and changing everything that you're doing and realizing that nothing is perfect. Everything needs working on. We're all a work in progress, aren't we? Including what we do as a business and everything we're creating. So yeah, I urge anyone who's thinking of getting involved in hospitality to either stay in lots of different places to understand how they've set up their services. And then when you've got your own, stay in your own and see what you might need to tweak and change as you go forward. But you're saying there that you have a toddler and you have Seth, who's a rock star, and he's constantly on the move and out and about and doing things here, there, and everywhere. How do you manage your hospitality now? It's grown into the machine that it's grown into. I mean, it's now quite big, isn't it? Started small, but it's big. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it is a challenge, it is a challenge, but it's what I signed up for. When I met Seth, that he was already doing this career, and I just understood like, okay, he's going to be on the road a good bit. It is harder than ever now having a toddler, and it's hard for him too, being away from her and missing her, and some of those, first moments, it was really, really challenging last year. Luckily, like they're not on the road as much as they used to be in the early days. In the early days, you're on the road 365, and now it's more spring and fall, but it's still really challenging, and he does an amazing job continuing to support the business even when he's on the road. As long as he has Wi-Fi, he can be helpful or involved. But I mean, it was almost comical. I still remember when we were building here, I feel like almost every time we're in construction and doing like major development, he was off on the road. I'm like, Seth, are you timing this just to torture me? Like literally when we first started here, we built 10 units in 6 months in 2021. And it was raw land, nothing was here. And we were living in like a rickety old trailer with a leaky roof from the 90s. I kid you not, because we were like, we've learned from the past and mistakes. Like we need to live on site during construction. We can move faster. We can speak into design decisions, whatever. But we've got no utilities, no plumbing, not like we are roughing it. And about 3 weeks into that, he has to go on tour. And so I am alone on this mountaintop in a camper, like leading a construction crew. I'm like, Seth, you're trying to break me. It's like, we've had times where I'm FaceTiming him. I'm like, this is the right, window or the right tree. It's like, oh my gosh, it's definitely a challenge. But like you said, the early days, it was just he and I and this lovely British woman who actually lived in the Dominican. She ran our guest comms and inquiries. So we were a team of 3. Like it was me, Seth, and one other person for years. And now it's grown to quite a large team. And and I don't say that to brag. Like I'm a big fan of lean and mean. Like if you can be lean and scrappy, do it. And now I think more than ever with technology and AI, that's possible. But having 23 units, 12 on the way, a spa and all the things. I mean, we've got a team of 37 full-time employees and some contractors that we work with too. And it's been incredible to get to work with some, just top talent and people who have really become experts in their field. And that allows Seth and I to really be visionary for him. He's such a vision guy, dreamer, designer. He designs all of the tree houses and domes. I love brand. I love marketing. So we get to really show up and do, what we can do to move the business forward the most, and then be everyone's, cheerleaders and support. That's the goal. So now having that team around us, it's definitely, less disruptive when he's on the road.
I'm really pleased that you brought up about branding, because that's one of the questions that I've had. You've got a really strong brand. And so clearly that's your thing. You've come up with that whole idea and you've developed that. So you've kind of blended luxury, sustainability, quirky new things, and obviously top end, accessories and all the extras that guests love. And as we know, a brand isn't about graphics and logos. It's about how all of those things together make someone feel. It's that kind of feeling of something and being engaged with that business. Because if it makes you feel good, then you want to be engaged in that business even more over and over again. A brand is what keeps people coming back. And actually, because of the way AI is going and AI search and online and all that kind of good stuff, which you must know all about because you're attracting so many direct bookings, the brand side of things is being promoted as one of the biggest elements people need to get right as they go forward, because that's the thing that's going to be able to stand them out ahead of AI and all the AI changes and the challenges as well that are coming with the AI. So how did you go about thinking through and planning your branding and how you wanted people to feel when they're interacting with your business? What was it that specifically was the route that you took as you were doing all of that?
Yeah, there are a couple things come to mind. People follow people more than they follow businesses, period. And so you're going to connect way more with Seth and Tori in our treehouse than a Marriott hotel. And so we just made it a point to really show up on social and talk to our people. We made welcome videos for our guests so that instead of reading a manual on how to work things, like they get to hear from us and see us. And if you own a short-term rental business or you're thinking about doing one and you're like, this sounds terrifying. I hate, the spotlight. I don't want to be on Instagram. It's okay. You don't have to. There are other ways, that you can overcome that. And maybe it's having somebody else, but people do connect with people. And so we did that early on. The other thing is one of our early slogans was live like kings, play like kids. It just kind of like encompassed everything that is a treehouse and luxury, and so, like drinking fine wine in the trees and eating a delicious pepperoni pizza that you made with your partner because you kneaded the dough together. It's experiential, it's fun, but you're living your best life in a robe, just all those things. And so that was something early on that we wanted to establish, was that live like kings kind of mentality, live it up. And to your point, brand is what allows you to collect a higher nightly rate. Not brand alone, you have to have an exceptional offering. But why do people pay $1,000 to stay in my treehouse than another one that they could find on Airbnb that's probably great? Like, it's brand, it's the reputation. Now it's this like sense of belonging in this community. Like, oh, I've been to Bolt Farm Treehouse, and so that was something early on too. We knew, we're like, hey, we're early on this idea of the luxury outdoor hospitality, but it won't be long until the competition comes. And boy, did that explode, right, in 2020. And so instead of being, just a little bit ahead of the competition or a little bit better than what else exists, like, how do we just go to the very top immediately? Because it's easier to lower your rates over time. It's harder, and in doing so, become more accessible to the masses. It's harder to raise your rates. So if you can just have a very high anchor right from the downbeat, because you're delivering so much value and you have this brand strength, then you can do that. And that's how we are able to command a premium. And so those are a couple things. I think also brand, like, it's more than just for marketing too. It's for recruiting your team. If you have plans to scale more than, I would say, 5 rentals, like, you cannot do it alone. And you're going to need people to come alongside you. And your ability to recruit top talent is critical. We have over 9,000 resumes right now in our database. And I think a lot of that is because of the brand power. People want to be part of this.
I think that's really amazing. And especially when you've got something there which is an asset and it's going to add value to your business. It's going to make sure that it stands strong as competition increases. As you said, it is starting to really explode in the USA. And just all of these things together means that business growth and scaling in the future is going to be that much easier. So getting the brand right and the feeling right from the start is so key. And so in terms of your business growth, you already talked about the fact that you're going to be expanding and you're going to be offering some new things. Are you able to talk about that, or are you keeping that under wraps for the moment?
So the very next accommodation that we're opening is under wraps. It's a surprise, but you'll be able to see it soon. We're going to share it on Instagram and our website and all the things. And I I'm very excited. I think it's going to blow people's minds. But I can tell you that right after that, and with construction, right, it's all happening in tandem. We're building 11 more tree houses. And this will be let me think through this real quick. This will be our sixth time building the honeymoon treehouse, because you just continue to reiterate and evolve and get better. Like, one of our superpowers, I think, is listening to our guests. We ask every single guest who stays here for private feedback where they can just let it rip. And we read it as a team every week and keep notes. And so, like, that feedback has helped us really evolve from the very first treehouse, which is still so special and charming, but it's very rustic and quaint. There's no hot tub, there's no copper tub, there's no this, and we're listening to things that matter to people, and we just continue to add it. And so it's really fun because it's still the honeymoon treehouse that everyone has seen and loves, but there are these small little details. So, like, for example, the treehouse I'm in right now, we've always had our outdoor shower, but this treehouse has like a cedar barrel shower. So it smells amazing. It's open to the view, but you've got privacy on the sides. It's cozy. And so, like, there's just these fine tuning adjustments. And so anyways, we're building 11 more tree houses right on the cliffside with that pristine view. Some of them have a view of 3 states, and just these small little tweaks that we've, been taking notes from over time.
You sound like you've still got so much passion for your business and for everything you're doing, even though clearly a lot of hard work, there's no doubt there. But what is it that's kept you going? Yeah, I mean, you've talked before about how it's been quite hard in the past when Seth's been on the road and you've got a toddler and everything else. But what is it other than journaling that keeps you going? Is it the customers? Is it the feedback? Is it things that you've learned, lessons you've learned along the way? I mean, what is it that you wouldn't trade in that gives you good mindset and ability to stand strong in the face of all of the challenges that come from hospitality?
Yeah, it's a few things. For me, one is my faith. I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do on this earth and how I can make a big impact. It is also our guests. I think of specific guests that I have gotten to connect with and the impact that we're having on their lives, on their relationship. There's been some guests who have come to stay with us for their proposal. They got engaged here. Then they came back and celebrated an anniversary. There was a short moment that we were child friendly. We learned that that's probably not us on the cliffs, but they came back with their daughter, and so it's getting to be part of their lives and grow with our guests is really special. But the other thing, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of wired this way. So if someone's listening, I hope they can kind of like smile as they relate, but it's the love of the great game of business, and just seeing, like, can we pull it off? Having this big, audacious goal and saying, I want to revolutionize hospitality and human connection. It's like my version of Elon's like going to Mars, and like, can we do this? Can we do this audacious goal? And it's not even about the money. If it was, we would have stopped a long time ago. It's about who we become in the process. I have grown so much as a person over the last 10 years, and a lot of it is from having to do hard things. And it's really fun. Like, Seth and I have talked about this. Retirement is really not in our plans. I'm sure we will work less someday than we currently work. We work a lot, but we love it, And I've had couples who work together ask me, like, how do you turn it off? Like, what are your boundaries for when you don't talk about work and this and that? And we honestly don't. Like, we love it. Like, we call it more of a work-life blend. There was a season that I felt more like I'm pretty type A, and I was like, okay, at dinner, business, we're turning that off. We're just going to talk about life. So then we start to talk, and we're like, so, what are you excited about? What are you, and it's work, you just can't turn it off. And we're like, well, we shouldn't feel bad about that. It's not for everybody, but that's us. And so it lights us up. And again, to model that hard work for our daughter, there's no pressure for her or our future children to join the business. But I do love the fact that with hospitality, there's so many different avenues they could find themselves in. It could be construction, guest experience, sales, finance. I mean, there's so many different things, spa, food, whatever. Again, no pressure. She can totally do her own thing, but there's just a lot of opportunities, for learning. And then I think now to layer one more layer on top of that all is getting to help other people who are running and growing their short-term rental business or just getting ready to start. Like, I remember how terrifying that was for me 10 years ago. No hospitality background, neither does Seth. And we're just figuring it out, like figuring it out in real time, you know? And for years, we told ourselves, oh, we can't afford mentors. We can't afford this. We can't go to a conference. We just got to put our head down and work hard. And so that's what we did. But gosh, I mean, we crashed into so many walls along the way, painful experiences, like 7 figures of mistakes, like costly mistakes and time lost that we'll never get back. And we later, after the Charleston development failed, we realized, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So we said, we're going to change our approach. Let's invest in ourselves. Let's invest in mentorship, masterminds, surround ourselves with people who have already been there, who have done that, maybe in a different industry or space a little bit, but whatever. And like, it was very scary to spend money on something that wasn't like directly, tangible for the business, but oh my God, it is paid off tenfold, and that's an understatement. Like, I remember just recently, I asked one of my mentors a question, hey, this is something we're thinking about doing. Should we do this? And he's like, no, do not do that. I tried that 3 years ago and here's how it bombed. And that saved me probably $70,000. I kid you not. And so 4 years ago, we made that switch, and you can see the trajectory of our business is just taken off since then. And so now we get to be that for others, and to save like a young entrepreneur, someone who's starting out, from painful mistakes, that we lived ourselves. Like, that brings me so much joy, and to see others thrive, and earlier you were talking about mindset. If I'm being honest, years ago, I probably had a bit of a scarcity mindset when it came to the competition. We would have people rip us off, like steal our ideas, copy us, like exactly. Like, there was a treehouse that I remember seeing online, and I was like, wait, is that ours? Oh my gosh, it's not. That's crazy. And I would get so upset. I'm like, this isn't right. This isn't fair. I don't want to share my secrets. I want us to succeed. And then I realized it's pretty selfish. And there are a lot of people on this earth and in this country, and whatnot. And there are plenty of places that they can stay. And now we have an abundance mindset, and we want to help other people really grow and thrive, because I think, the rising tide lifts all ships, and everybody can win when creators are making something really beautiful for the hospitality space. And it's not a race to the bottom in terms of discounting and whatnot. Like, how do we help others be better? I think that's mindset switch for us has really made this all more enjoyable. And it actually led us to the workshops and the mentoring that we do, which is now something I spend a ton of my time on. And again, it's just very life-giving.
It's really interesting you talk about the scarcity mindset, because in my time in this industry, which has been far too long, I won't share how many years, decades, but I can always tell when someone has the scarcity button switched on, because they seem to be lacking inspiration. They are holding themselves back. They're a bit caught up and tight, and they definitely are not living life to the way that they can do and to their full extreme of potential, because they're just so worried about everything. Everything seems so small, and so it's all going to run out and it's not going to work, or it probably won't work. If someone has maybe even the slightest hint that they are caught in the scarcity mindset, that they must do some personal work on that to try to get out of that, because I think it's actually so core to business success and to opening yourself up to those positive opportunities that will come your way. If you are much more engaged in abundance, then they'll miss out on it, and it would be a great shame if that happens. So I'm really pleased to hear that you're not in that way of thinking. And I can tell as well by the fact that you've got so many direct bookings. I mean, you've mentioned there how you're sharing a lot of your knowledge with people who are interested in being in this space, and that's commendable and fabulous. And I know that you're going to be at the conference at the end of September with me and others, and we're really looking forward to everything that you and Seth have to share. But you're also doing some other things. You're doing some short-term rental workshops, I suppose you would call them. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So these workshops are really incredible. They're here at Bolt Farm. So it's very immersive and it's a very intimate group. And I mean, we're talking like 15 businesses basically, because we're essentially inviting you into our living room. And it's 2 days. We share everything we know and as much value as we could possibly pack into 2 days, covering every topic that we've kind of touched on today, construction, permitting, building a team, operations, raising capital, sales, marketing, branding, all the things, how to work with influencers. But we also bring them really behind the scene to our business. We're showing our active construction site, our operations building, where we do laundry, like what that looks like, because we just want to set people up to win. And so there's really two types of people who are coming to these, and it's people who have a short-term rental business and they want to scale. Scale doesn't necessarily mean a number of units. It could mean I want my business to be more profitable. Like I'm doing all this work and I'm just not seeing it on my bottom line. How do I fix that? And then people who are just starting out, like how can we give you a roadmap for how to get started and where to find land, the right checklist to make sure that you're looking for the right things. And so that's what we do. We do them about one a quarter. So we're doing one in May and then one in August. And we're very selective and intentional with who's in the room. Earlier in this conversation, we were talking about people who are in it just to make a buck. And we can't really help those people, but the people who have a true passion for hospitality or an idea that they want to see come to life, we're like, we know we can help you. And so anyways, we invite them to come out and it's a great time. It's a lot of teaching. And then we do these fun, fancy dinners at Bolt Farm. We actually just opened a rooftop deck near our wellness haven. And it's just so stunning. And so we'll do like a dinner there with live music. And so it's great. And, there's the opportunity for ongoing mentorship because regardless of how much we pack into 2 days, it's still a long journey and you're going to want to phone a friend when you run into some red tape, but that's also, not required. So we started this last year and it's been immensely successful.
I love that. Phone a friend. Yes, please. I'm going to phone up Tori. What a fantastic opportunity. And one of the things I want to end on really is around AI and how hospitality is standing strong in the face and all of that and all the changes that are coming this way. And one of the things that I've heard from lots of different sources is around, and this is particularly relevant for your family, your daughter, who will be growing up in hospitality, is about we're going to see things change beyond recognition within the next few years and beyond. It's just incredible what's happening. And a lot of that we're going to be talking about at the conference. We've got some AI experts coming in. And one of the things that keeps getting mentioned is don't worry about it with hospitality. Hospitality has actually got one of the strongest positions to be able to continue to flourish in the face of all these AI changes because of the fact it's dealing with people, it's individual personal experiences that people are crafting, and particularly in experiential hospitality, glamping hospitality, that's where it's really standing out. And in fact, we're hearing stories of people who have made it big in AI, they've sold up and they're coming into this world of hospitality because they see that it's got so much potential to stand strong. So my question to you is, do you agree with that?
I do. I think hospitality is AI proof. It is. It's a human connection business. And I was actually just talking with my COO yesterday about some of the current challenges we're working through with people on our team. There's so many different personalities because hospitality is, you're creating experiences. And so that often looks like you have a team of creators and, empathetic people and all these different things, different personalities. I think AI harnessed correctly just allows you to be more efficient so that you can show up and be that much more, high touch and personalized with your guests. If you've read Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara, I love that book. And he just sets the bar so high for what's possible for personalization. And so for us, we very much so lean into AI and utilize it in every part of the business. And it doesn't replace people. It makes them more efficient so that they can spend their time on the more impactful work.
I love that. So I'm really excited to be in this industry, and it sounds like you are too, and that's fabulous. I think that there's so much potential, and as you said, it's about taking the AI and making what we do better, but it's not going to change it beyond recognition. It's just going to enhance the experience for guests. So that's wonderful. So if somebody is listening in now and they want to speak with yourself or Seth and take part in everything that you're offering at Bolt Farm, or to enjoy one of your tree houses or your domes or your mirrored cabin or any of those wonderful things that you've got going over there, and your spas, oh my goodness, you've got so much going on. How would they do that? Where will they find you? Where do they need to go?
Thank you. Yeah, come to our website, boltfarmtreehouse.com. You can see about booking a stay, coming to a workshop, all of that right there. And if you're on social, we're on every platform, probably the most active on Instagram, Bolt Farm Treehouse.
Thank you so much, Tori. I cannot wait to see you and Seth in person at the end of September.
Likewise, counting down.